Hello friends, this is Dr. Urmi Satyan and today's topic for critical analysis is Middlemarch, one of the Victorian novels written by George Eliot. Middlemarch was first published in 8 volumes during the year of 1872. The novel's central focus is to expose social hypocrisy prevalent during the Victorian period. The novel has different story threads that are woven cohesively to create a perfect picture of Victorian society. We observe that every story thread brings forth one or the other socio-moral issues related to unpleasant or failed marriages, money-centric relations, courtships, family rivalries, dark histories, fake nobilities, financial insecurities, gossip, cases of unemployment, murders, debts, infidelities and what not. George Eliot impeccably interlaces all these fictional yarns and presents a representative narration of 19th century provincial life in England. With this primary introduction, let us try to understand the novel's major and minor characters and the storyline that encircles them. For an easy understanding, I have divided the story into 4 parts. In the first part, I will give you an introduction of the 4 major characters: 2 Brooke sisters, Dorothea and Celia, a rich landowner, Sir James Chatham, and a middle-aged scholarly person, Edward Casaubon. At the beginning of the novel, we see that Sir James Chatham and Edward Casaubon are invited for dinner at the house of the Brooke family. Dorothea was supposed to marry Chatham, but it so happens that Celia and Chatham develop a liking for each other, and Dorothea also, on the other hand, finds Edward Casaubon as a suitable candidate for marriage. Edward Casaubon is a middle-aged religious person who is working on a book titled The Key to All Mythologies. Dorothea frames some idealistic notions about marrying him and supporting his noble task. As we are told in the very beginning that she actually nurtures childlike ideas about marriage. But in the course of the novel, we see that she fails. First, in over-idealizing Casaubon, and secondly, in underrating her own idea of individualism. It is during their honeymoon days in Rome that she finds him overoccupied with the task on hand, that is to write the book on mythologies. She also finds that he is least interested in developing any marital relationship with her. That widens the gap in their married life. Dorothea's reverential gratitude for Casaubon encounters her own dormant wish to be admired as a moral person. Eliot writes, Dorothea had little vanity, but she had the ardent woman's need to rule beneficently by making the joy of another soul. Her monotonous life finds some liveliness when Casaubon's cousin Will Ladislaw arrives. He befriends with Dorothea and shows interest in her. Will and Dorothea's friendship brings Casaubon's real nature to the surface. Casaubon feels jealous and insecure, and so adds a clause in his will that if Dorothea marries Will Ladislaw, she will not inherit his, that is Casaubon's, fortune. Casaubon dies and Dorothea is deserted, physically, psychologically and also financially. Thus, in this first plot, that is first part, we see the issues of family rivalry, unsuccessful marriage, emotional insecurity, jealousy and social hypocrisy. In the second part, we see the presence of Tertius Lydgate, a medical reformist. His entry brings new energy to the village of Middlemarch. He happens to meet Bulstrode, who is a financier and a fake philanthropist. Fake because he professes to be a religious person but has a dark past. Bulstrode's niece, Rosamond Vincy has a rich girl's tantrum. She finds Lydgate to be a suitable medium for quick social recognition and so marries him. But Lydgate fails to understand her tantrums and falls into big debt. So, this marriage also fails. The third part introduces one more couple of childhood friends, Fred Vincy and Mary Garth. Fred is Rosamond's brother. He has taken university education. He is a church vicar, but he is insincere, casual and careless in all his religious as well as socio-familial engagements. Mary Garth is an upfront young girl. She forces Fred to forsake his church commitments before their marriage. Fred agrees and loses both his religious affiliations with the church and his occupation as a horse dealer. Mary's father doesn't help him financially but by lending him any amount on loan, but rather employs him as a land agent and thus sets an example of hard work over any kind of easy financial help. I think, friends, this is the only rational act that we can see in this novel. The fourth part is the plot of all revelations. Here we see a new entry of John Raffle, who blackmails Bulstrode, who had so far hidden the dark past of earning money by selling stolen goods. Lydgate, the medical doctor who has married Bulstrode's niece Rosamond Vincy, is shocked to know about Bulstrode's past. Bulstrode is exposed and so faces exile. Dorothea abandons her right over her husband's fortune. She decides to listen to her heart's call and thus marries Will Ladislaw. So friends, this is the interlinking storyline of Middlemarch. Now let us analyze the novel a little critically. Middlemarch is a rising manufacturing town that has a social milieu where multiple contradictory emotions, aspirations, desires, concepts and ideologies coexist. We see that George Eliot gives a subtle message to society through the depiction of various marital relations in the town of Middlemarch. George Eliot's lucid art of narration keeps the readers hooked on the strong chain of incidents that take place in the lives of the novel's characters. In every incident, we see the powerful undercurrent of the concepts of emotional insecurity, hypocrisy and fragility of human relations. The first critical observation is George Eliot's depiction of moral stupidity that is reflected through the marriages of Dorothea and Casaubon and Rosamond and Lydgate. The main plot of the novel is to reveal socio-moral hypocrisy. As we have read in the novel, the 19-year-old idealistic girl Dorothea unhesitatingly consults almost all the other characters for guidance and advice. She takes unreasonable and impulsive decisions in her life. She gets impressed by a middle-aged religious man Casaubon and decides to marry him, and then we also see her consulting Lydgate for guidance. She tells him, "Oh, you are a wise man, are you not? You know all about life and death. Please advise me." It is with high regard that she marries an elderly person, Edward Casaubon, but her idealism gets shattered when she finds him over-obsessed with his magnanimous work and least interested in her. This reveals to us that both of them are not honest about their own emotions. Her moral stupidity is clearly seen in almost all her thoughts and decisions. We see the same moral stupidity also in the marriage of Tertius Lydgate, the medical doctor, and Rosamond, the light-hearted, playful and reckless girl. Lydgate expects Rosamond to be dedicated to the stereotypical social role of a woman. He believes that she should look pretty and be his subordinate, and she sees in him a good opportunity to climb the high society ladder. This aspiration of hers is uncompromisingly strong, so much so that she easily gets over the grief of Lydgate's untimely death and decides to marry his cousin Captain Lydgate. This shows her desperation to maintain her position in the elite class. Her recklessness is seen also when she fabricates a plot to go horse riding and thus to terminate her pregnancy. Her self-possessive nature astonishes her mother, Mrs. Vincy, who sees her getting over the grief of the miscarriage nicely. We see that all these characters fail to pay the price of their own self-made idealism. Rosamond is overconfident in all her decisions, whereas Dorothea is a self-effacing person. Casaubon, on the other side, is loudly expressive about every unpleasant consequence that causes mental disturbance to him. He explicitly disapproves Dorothea's overwhelming behavior in welcoming Will Ladislaw during his absence. Dorothea is apologetic for the same and begs for his forgiveness. She says, "Forgive me for speaking so hastily to you this morning. I was wrong. I fear I hurt you and made the day more burdensome." It is very late in her life that she gains clarity of mind and decides to abandon her claim over her husband's property and marry Will Ladislaw, a simple and a hard-working person who later becomes an ardent public man, a parliamentarian who contributes in his capacity to support the reform bill that was passed in 1832. The second critical observation is that the characters in Middlemarch lack rational aptitude. Dorothea is obsessively idealistic about marrying an elderly scholar Casaubon. Lydgate arrives with new medical reformistic ideas. Rosamond Vincy is a rich and spendthrift girl who marries Lydgate for quick social status, but her vanity and obstinacy put him in debt, and consequently their marriage also comes to an end. Eliot draws our attention to the concept of the selfish motive and its disastrous result in marriage. Dorothea is selfish in marrying Casaubon as she wants social appraisal. Casaubon sees Dorothea more as his research assistant than as a wife. Lydgate finds Rosamond as an ornament to his sophisticated life, whereas Rosamond finds in Lydgate an easy medium to quick social rise. Thus all four of them have their hypothetical and exaggerated interest in marrying their selected partners. Middlemarch introduces George Eliot as a commendable novelist who presents utter realism by showing two self-surrounded couples who use marriage as an instrument to fulfill their desires to gain high attention and rank in society. But they all miss each other's mental track. In short, they restrict the natural flow of life by regulating their lives according to their self-designed priorities. The action flow of the novel is multidimensional. We see constant movement in the novel. The characters continuously work through mind, body and heart. Some chase their dreams, some their passions, and some, like Casaubon, nurture the feelings of jealousy and vengeance. So we can say, friends, that all these characters of Middlemarch entangle themselves in the web of self-imposed morality. Eliot draws our attention to the prevalent time when morality was a burden to the rich as well as to the country folks. The omniscient narrator presents the threads of this busy and loud socio-moral hullabaloo. The storyline is so consistent and interlinked that the narration smoothly flows from one to the other event or matter. We also notice George Eliot's narrative technique of using literary epigrams that precede almost every chapter of the novel. This narrative technique embellishes the novel's curve of wisdom to match the novel's central theme, the clash of socio-moral values in Victorian society. The epigrams highlight the role of chance that overpowers the characters' individual wishes, dreams and passions that govern the action and movement of the story. One more noticeable aspect in the novel is its prelude. Here, George Eliot introduces a Spanish woman saint, Teresa, whose passionate and ideal nature demanded an epic life and who found her repose in the reform of a religious order. Eliot says that our Dorothea Brooke is also born, though after 300 years of Saint Teresa, with the same spiritual grandeur. But unlike that of Saint Teresa's, Dorothea's spiritual grandeur is ill-matched with the meanness of opportunity. Her moral struggles seem to the world as mere inconsistencies and formlessness. As Eliot says, Dorothea is like a cygnet, cygnet that is reared uneasily among the ducklings in the brown pond and never finds the living stream in fellowship. So to sum up, friends, we can say that the inhabitants of Middlemarch are sandwiched between the challenges of the ideal and real life. We see that almost all of them, doctors, lawyers, financiers, researchers, writers, cheaters and also the idealists, face challenges on socio-moral grounds and are forced to rework their decisions and accept the pressing demand of time. Friends, Middlemarch is a bulky novel. In case that is the reason for you to procrastinate its reading, please trust me and read the prelude of the book. Its powerful allegory between Saint Teresa and Dorothea will certainly make you curious to know more about Dorothea's struggle between her moral thinking and individual priorities. Reading Middlemarch is completely like enjoying an intellectual ride. For further reading, please also read Eliot's essays, Silly Novels by Lady Novelist, and Leaves from a Notebook, Storytelling. So that is it for today. I hope you will find this video helpful. Bye for now.